Your life.
Welcome to Slow News Day Live. My name is Steve Boykinen. They should change the name of Boulder Creek, California to Frosty Balls, California. It is not. We're not supposed to have like a layer of frost on the ground this far south. Anywho, I'm going to stop whining like a mule and get into the fun of the show here. I'm joined this morning. Oh, and by the way, Gloria had a bunch of family stuff to do. She's not going to be with us today, but she will be back this week and next Sunday. So enjoy your time away from the madness, Glory Jones. And I'm joined this morning by a friend of the show, writer extraordinaire, wonderful human being, Morgan Artyukhina. How are you today?
Hi.
Did I murder your last name? I don't.
No, you nailed it. Yeah. So
I think we've been over this. I have a funny last name, so I try to be careful with other people with funny last names.
yeah, I'm the same way.
Yeah. Yeah, how you been? How's it going? I really enjoyed listening to you on Facts on the Ground.
Yeah,
and the Space Force stuff. That was fantastic.
Yeah, that was fun. Me and Misty and Jesse talked until my voice literally ran out. So that's always fun.
She's good for that. She is. Misty's a talker. But we've got some fun stuff planned for today. If you've noticed or if you've seen the links that we put out, we're calling this show Super Villain Sunday. And we're not short at all of super villains to pick from here in the American Empire. There are lots and lots of them, so this will probably become a regular feature on the show now. But Morgan and I were talking over the last week or so, and two particular villains emerged out of these conversations. One being Diane Feinstein, who Jello Biafra taught me to call her Diane Feinswine, which I've been doing since about 86. And then I started referring to her as American Thatcher. And mostly because every picture you see her in, she looks like she just ate a baby and she's wearing a set of pearls. So American Thatcher. We're also going to go after Elon Musk because people don't, and I don't know why. Elon Musk is the scion of blood emerald merchants. He's the poster boy for transhumanism. His companies are perpetually bankrupt, and he's bailed. He continually gets bailed out by the U.S. government to produce, I don't know, ugly trucks. It's not ugly trucks. He did just launch around 50 spy satellites, and that went off without nary a comment from the vast majority of media in general. So this is going to be a lot of fun. Buckle up for it, and let's get at it. I would love to hear, before we go into specifics, your overall thoughts, Morgan, on Diane Feinstein and Saint Elon.
Well, as far as Diane Feinstein is concerned, I mean, you kind of hit it. She's kind of has a very long and illustrious career of being a supervillain monster. Her career was catapulted to national, renown by the murder of Harvey Milk and Mayor George Moscone, who were, two very progressive figures. Harvey Milk was one of the first openly gay people elected to, public office in this country. So her career was kind of born out of that. She's been kind of the liberal nanny state godmother of, between the assault weapons ban and, trying to get PIPA passed and Patriot Act, FISA courts, everything that you can name, right down to just being really nasty to a bunch of Sunrise Movement kids. I hate her. So that's my attitude. And Elon Musk is Lex Luthor incarnate.
I was watching some different videos, and it's interesting. You don't find any negative content about Elon Musk. There's literally a video on YouTube called The Dark Truth about Elon Musk. And the big reveal is that Iron Man, the character as portrayed by Johnny Depp, was based off of Elon Musk. Like, that's their big get, is that Johnny Depp and Elon Musk hung out so that Johnny Depp could better portray Iron Man. And
Isn't it Robert Downey?
Huh?
Isn't it Robert Downey Jr.?
Or Robert Downey Jr.
Yeah.
You're right. I'm sorry. You can tell how much I watch fucking those flicks. You can. I'm
But
not.
wait a minute. When the first first Iron Man movie came out, a SpaceX rocket had not yet gotten off the launch pad without blowing up. How was he the guy that to model Tony Stark after?
I think it was more from the seemingly carefree, charismatic mega billionaire thing, and not the legacy of success. Although Musk he started his career out with a bang, partnering up with Jeff Bezos and Peter Thiel to give I with friends like that, you know, I mean, it says a lot about the guy. So I've said this once before. This is absolutely factually true. The 100% true. A good friend of mine, one of my fraggles, and by that I mean a grown-ass man with dreadlocks and a big bushy beard and a pudgy little white hippie fraggle. One of my fraggles has friends that have property up in Oregon, and Musk is like the next property owner over. So they've been eating psychedelics with Elon Musk. And I'm like, please get me in that room. Oh my God. The next time that happens, dude, I'll do whatever it takes, dude. Because I want to corner a tripping balls Elon Musk and ask him some real questions, you know. I guarantee you, nobody has ever asked Elon Musk a serious question. I got the chance to ask Roger Stone a serious question, and he sidestepped around the answer and immediately bailed from the stream. So, look, man, you're only going to get one shot with these fucks anyway, you know, 9 times out of 10. So if you're gonna swing, you swing for the freaking fences, as far as I'm concerned. But oh my God, dude, wouldn't that be fucking wild? Like, you walk into a house and Elon Musk is over there in the corner, high as giraffe pussy, and you're like, I got you, man. Anyway, I play this scenario out in my head way too often. I should just, you know, but wait until opportunity presents itself. But yeah, Elon Musk, born in South Africa, parents owned a series of emerald mines. So it's not as if this dude lived any kind of comparable childhood to, you know, the slave children that were digging out the emeralds for mommy and daddy. And he gets no criticism. Like, do you have any guesses or theories as to why Musk always gets a pass?
No, not really. I mean, I understand why he's being made out to be this kind of like industrialist hero or whatever, you know. But I don't. I couldn't guess. I'm looking into his history right now, like where he was. Yeah, he was born in Pretoria.
Yeah, he was born in Pretoria in apartheid South Africa.
Yeah.
He grew up under that system. He moved to Canada when he was in his early teens. He became a U.S. citizen in his early 30s.
Yeah, I was actually watching
years ago.
Amandla a couple of days ago. You ever seen that movie? It's a documentary about the anti-apartheid struggle in South Africa. Focuses very heavily on like the music, which was very central to it. But it's a really, really good movie. Kind of starts with 1948 and, you know, and then the kind of establishment of apartheid and all of that, you know, all the way through through the end and Nelson Mandela's election in '94 and stuff. It's on. I think it's on Netflix right now.
Okay.
Yeah, it's on Netflix. So it's worth checking out. It's a really good. If you want to know about the world where Elon, excuse me, where Elon Musk came from, where there was literally this racial, separation, reinforced by just fantastic violence. Fantastic in the bad way, it's just this incredible amount. I mean, it's amazing to see the scenes from there, where from a big uprising in Soweto or something, where you have the South African police out there with these armored vehicles, and they're shooting at protesters and stuff. And I'm like, this could have been shot a couple of months ago in Portland, or here in DC or wherever. It's the same kind of attitude. Gaza. Yeah. And I was actually thinking about this. It's actually, I know we're not talking about apartheid South Africa or whatever, but it occurred to me that South Africa became a major arms manufacturer during the kind of mid to late apartheid era, when they were facing this militant, constant uprising by Black Africans. And that's when they developed, things like crowd control vehicles and crowd control weapons and stuff like that, and really kind of exported it around the world. And Israel has done the same thing, and the United States has done the same thing, because they both face this perennial problem of always needing to police this part of the population that is trying to rise up against oppression.
Well, and I mean, when you make an entire classification of people legally second-class citizens, or 35th class citizens, or subhuman in general, that's going to have a blowback that it might take a while for it to manifest, especially after you seize power violently. One of the first objectives in seizing power violently is to violently crush all of the opposition leaders and their families. So sometimes it takes a couple of generations before a new round of resistance figures emerge. But that's because they've had to, live as subjugated citizens. It's because people eventually figure out what their own history is, and that they weren't always fucking chattel, and everybody everywhere wants some fucking agency. Morgan Artyukhina, it's a thing, it's certainly something that we're striving for on this show, is a little bit of self-determination, a little bit of agency. At this point, by any fucking means we can achieve it. And back to Feinstein, she's been one of the biggest stumbling blocks in two of the most powerful positions in the U.S. Senate for an incredibly long time. She's been serving since 1990, something like that. 92. Oh yeah, she came in at the same time Boxer did. And at least Boxer had the good grace to bow out early, I guess, after almost 30 years, 25 years. But Feinstein still there with her, bony clawed fingers into everything. And I kind of want to examine a little bit Feinstein as the president of the San Francisco Board of Supervisors in 1977 or 78, when she got elected. That she was the first woman elected to that position. She was one of those silver spoon liberals, or at least that's what it appears to be from her bio. I don't really know much about her childhood, but she seems to be well off. Seems to come from a well-established family. Went to Stanford in the 50s. And has really been on board during and taking notes during some of the darkest periods in American history, including the original McCarthyism and Red Scare. Those were her college years when that was going on, in her post-grad years when that was going on. And she's taken that sort of Eugene McCarthy mentality and carried it with her throughout her entire career, where she'll lean heavily to politicize quote unquote social wedge issues, especially guns and abortion. So she's the foil, I guess, to the right-wing arguments about guns and abortion. They can always point to Feinstein. They can always point to Pelosi. Wait, what was it? Necrosi? Is that what we were calling her now?
Yeah, that's it.
Necrosi.
Oh boy.
Again, somebody in the chat dropped that a few weeks
Why are they
ago.
all from California?
Because California is a cipher, Morgan. It's supposed to be this bastion of liberalism, and what it is in reality is a neoliberal playground for transhumanists and pedophiles and titans of industry, under the guise of classical liberalism. Like, it's fucking insane here. It really is. California has been wild. This is where the U.S. military was grabbing people off the street and grabbing grad students off the street in Berkeley and pumping them full of LSD in the 50s just to see if they could use it for mind control. Like, granted, they were doing the same thing at the university level in the Ivy League schools on the other side of the country too. But, you know, this is where, and Feinstein is incontrovertibly linked to, this is where the People's Temple was. You know, this is where Jim Jones happened. Jim Jones was a heavily recognized, well-liked political figure in San Francisco and Berkeley, right at the same time that Harvey Milk was coming up, that Feinstein was getting into power, and that Dan White was getting into power. It's weird. Like, literally, I think in the same month or even in the same week as Jonestown, Harvey Milk was shot, murdered, cold blood.
You're right.
Discovered by Diane Feinstein, who says she was there to check his pulse and accidentally put her finger in the bullet hole. And then that's what she ran out of the office screaming about.
Okay.
Yeah, and like, this is where it gets weird. This is where, like, you
got to tell them about that conspiracy theory you were telling me about.
I spent some time yesterday on a handful of conspiracy sites, like, and there's countervailing narratives. One is that she was a mentor to Milk. The other is that she was a mentor to White. But both agree that she definitely had something to do with Harvey Milk's murder. One of them going as far as to say it was Feinstein's own illegally obtained .38 pistol that did it, so that she could have the murder weapon as a piece of history signifying the launch of her real and genuine political career, going as far as to saying that she was able to obtain one of the bullets and keeps this bullet in some sort of, like, I don't know, Lexan trophy case or something like that, in a secret fucking room in one of her houses. Or like, it gets deep, dude. It's wild. And I tell this to Sleepy Josh before you got on the thing, and he's like, yeah, I can see that. You know, yeah, that makes sense. But what we can't deny is that she was poor when both Moscone and Milk were murdered. She was inextricably linked to the police force investigating them, where she was just tied to the investigation. The court, the whole trial of White, with everyone that reported on it at the time refers to it as a circus. He only got a short sentence. He got like 5 years, and this is where the Twinkie defense first makes its appearance on the American legal stage. Do you want to tell him what the Twinkie defense is, or should I?
I can explain it. Yeah.
Sure.
So basically, what happened is, just a little bit of backstory. What happened is that Harvey Milk and Dan White were both elected to the San Francisco Board of Supervisors at the same time. It was the first citywide, like, actual election, in the kind of like the proper sense. You were elected by district, and they were kind of opposite ends of the spectrum. And Dan White in particular was very anti-Semitic and homophobic, and Harvey Milk was a gay Jewish man. So they didn't get along very well, and their politics kind of differentiated. And Dan White, he resigned, didn't he? He resigned and then tried to unresign.
Yeah,
And
like 4 days
and
later.
then Moscone, the mayor, wouldn't. It kind of came down that he was not going to get it.
So
he was not going to get his job back.
The story I heard is that he had initially said, and he was even quoted in one of the papers as saying Dan White is the supervisor from District 8. And then he had a meeting with Milk, and Harvey Milk talked him out of it. And then he crawfished on that and said, no, I'm sorry, you don't get to be supervisor. You resigned. I'm going to hold you to that. But you can run. And if you get elected, then you can have it again. And after that is when he snapped and shot both.
And that's what happens in the movie, the movie Milk, which I think came out like 15 years ago or so, like mid 2000s. It's a good movie. You should definitely watch it. Yeah, Sean Penn plays him. It's really good. But anyway, so what happened was Dan White freaked the fuck out and snuck into the. He blamed Harvey Milk for ending his career, basically, because he had campaigned to like not get, like, I think it was like a psychiatric ward put in his district or something, and Harvey Milk wound up being the deciding vote in getting it passed. And so he was like, my political career's over, this faggot betrayed me and whatever. And so he snuck into City Hall, shot Mayor Moscone in the face, and then shot Harvey Milk in the face. And then in the trial, what they said, oh, well, he wasn't really responsible for his actions because he was super depressed and he was eating junk food all week, and like the Twinkie and stuff was the example. And they're like, oh, he's like kind of on like a hellish sugar high, basically, and it made him, like plot double fucking murder. And so they gave him like 3rd-degree manslaughter is what they wound up with. And like you said, like it was like the cops were in on the whole thing. And like, so after they had announced the verdict in, I think, May 1979, gay people rioted in the White Night riots, and which was the most violent LGBTQ uprising in history. And a lot of stuff came out of that, like slogans like out of the bars and into the streets, which they chanted out of the bars into the streets. Dan White was a cop, and burned police cars. They like torched City Hall and like smashed shit, and like it was just this moment of unbridled fury. But yeah, it was because they gave him this Twinkie defense that kind of got him off on an absolutely nothing charge for having assassinated the first, major gay politician in history and a progressive San Francisco mayor at the same time. And because
I read a little bit on Dan White's trial yesterday. He shot Moscone 4 times. He got 2 in the chest and 2 in the head. They didn't say how many times that he had shot Harvey Milk. Only the first shot was the kill shot. But if you're in a fugue state, if you're in a Twinkie driven fit of madness, do you remember your police training? Do you aim right? Do you make sure that you double tap to the chest and double tap to the head? Like, I don't know. And I don't know if this was ever brought out in the court. I don't know what kind of medical or psychiatric experts they put forth to be like, yup, the Twinkies done did it. And I don't know what kind of jury would be like, Twinkies, I see. Well, this changes everything. It's just it seems so absurd to me. But I mean, we had Johnny Cochran and what South Park called the Chewbacca defense. But yeah, I mean, that was, you know, the comical moment of Johnny Cochran fake putting on a glove and saying, if the glove doesn't fit, you must acquit. And that turned into the Chewbacca defense, which was, if the defense doesn't make sense, you must acquit. And that's kind of what happened. The defense didn't make any sense, so they were like, "Yeah, okay, we'll give him a pass. You know, a couple years, you'll learn."
I mean, the counterpoint is that, you know, a lot of people didn't really like gay people, and a lot of people really didn't like Harvey Milk. As much support as he got from so many communities, which was the reason that he was such a progressive force, and the reason that Diane Feinstein didn't like him either, because he really kind of took the wind out of her sails, because before he came along, she was like kind of the pro-gay politician in the San Francisco scene, but she was very moderate. Like, she had the support of like big donors, you know, like advocate gays, as we call them, you know, kind of very politically moderate, don't rock the boat. People who refused to back Harvey, like gay people who refused to back Harvey Milk's campaign because he was a rabble rouser who was, you know, like kind of campaigning on behalf of the street queens and stuff. Mm-hmm. So he was not somebody that a lot of people liked. He had successfully led the campaign to get I forget what proposition number it was, but it was a proposal to try and get to make it legal to fire gay people from like the school system or whatever. And he successfully campaigned against that, and that was a landslide victory. So there's a whole lot of people out there who just did not think that gays belonged in office, did not think that they belonged in public, and we're kind of happy to see him go. You know, so I don't have a tough time believing that, you know, a panel of 12 straight people would, you know, basically give this guy a pass.
I mean, that's fair, and it was 1979, and this is, I mean, the White Knight riots, demonstrations, fucking shit show. That was really, like, it was that, and then about 18 months later, it was AIDS. And that was an unrelenting period of about a decade, really, almost, of zero recognition other than disdain, zero support other than inside of their own community. My former uncle was a fucking leather queen in San Francisco, leather daddy in San Francisco back during that. He's told stories and shit, and he was like, "Yo, dude, I'm really glad we've calmed down," kind of thing. And now he's one of those, like, don't rock the boat, Hillary Clinton is the queen, Kamala Harris is perfect, all that kind of shit. And it's so weird that in 30 years you're going from Dan White's a cop to we love the fact that Kamala Harris is a cop.
Yeah.
And the sort of like entire, I don't know, perspective shift or Josh and I have this conversation occasionally. Like, I'm straight as fuck. I'm always like, there's, you know, it's terminally like, and so I don't understand the mindset of being like a literal oppressed minority and wanting to join a system cheering all the way that represents your own oppression, your own, like, the murders of your own community, to the point to where Kamala Harris is now like some sort of superhero. Or
well, I'm a socialist, so I don't understand it either.
Right.
But yeah, no. And I mean, that's the thing, is like it's really, in a certain sense, kind of the victory of the Feinstein politics, you know, because they wanted to position themselves as like, we're the only avenue through which gay people can get anything. but we're only going to give you a little bit, so much so long as it doesn't rock the boat of all these other special interests that we have. And that was really what they wanted to do, was reduce gay people to just another special interest, to just another kind of, part of the voting block that we can kind of throw a few crumbs to, and they're not going to get any crumbs from anybody else. So they can, we're their only choice. It's in preparing for this interview appearance, I don't know, fireside chat, whatever the fuck you want to call it, I actually went back and I was reading through this biography of Harvey Milk called The Mayor of Castro Street, which was really, really good. It's by this journalist, Randy Schultz, who wrote another really great book called The Band Played On, which is about the first decade or so of the anti-AIDS struggle. He sadly died of AIDS in the late 80s. But his book, in this book, he really talks about Diane Feinstein and how she related to kind of that political era. And he uses the phrase, he says that Feinstein really was seen as having this attitude of like noblesse obligée, that kind of attitude, the patrimonial attitude of like the nobility, the aristocracy has this kind of duty to watch over the peasants as if they're their children and kind of take care of them, this kind of very paternalistic attitude. And that's really evident in kind of a lot of her politics, the ways that she behaves thereafter, because like you said, she positioned herself as this kind of champion of the gay community. But then, in 1982, for example, she voted against, or she vetoed a measure that would have given gay people residential partner rights, so that you could visit your terminally ill partner who you've lived with for 30 years, in the hospital when they're dying of AIDS. And she vetoed that, and this was at a time that San Francisco was 25% gay. 1 in 4 San Franciscans was gay. And that was still her attitude. So yeah, I think that kind of Kamala, it's interesting that Kamala Harris is also she's from San Francisco, right? Or from Central California there. So it's the same kind of attitude of people are like, oh, she put her pronouns in her bio, and, she's kind of, this is our chance to finally get something in, rather than voting for like a real progressive, think about like Bernie Sanders. Bernie Sanders was not especially big on like I mean, he had a plan for LGBTQ rights and stuff, but like his concerns were like economic concerns. And definitely in the queer community, like when we were talking about stuff, Bernie Sanders was the one who came up more often, especially from poorer folks who were like, well, I'm worried about my rent. I'm worried about, college debt. I'm worried about, getting better pay at my minimum wage job. I'm worried about, these, healthcare, these things that are really kind of the bread and butter concerns. And then like kind of more middle class people would be like, oh, I love Elizabeth Warren because she marched in a pride parade, or Kamala Harris put her bio, pronouns in her bio and has
the rainbow boa, and that really speaks to me.
You know how mad that made me?
Yeah. Elizabeth Warren and the rainbow boa?
Dude,
that one page, that one time?
I raged, dude. I was pissed. It was just pandering. It was gross, dude.
And it looks like it when you watch it too. Like as somebody who, has been to many pride celebrations in my life, it looks like the person, your mom who came that one time and is like, I'm an ally, and isn't actually like, in it to win it. And so, I mean, the twisted thing is that you get like Kamala Harris type person and, oh, she has a great job voting on stuff, in the Senate or whatever. But like at the same time, when she was chief prosecutor in California, she was fighting to keep trans women in men's prisons. She was fighting to stop them from getting access to medically necessary, transition resources and stuff that like, if you don't get, will really fuck you up. Little bit of an aside, I had a hiccup because of like delivery stuff from my pharmacy. I was trying not to go into the pharmacy because of COVID, and they were delivering stuff, and FedEx fucked up the delivery, and I missed getting my hormones for a week, and it shut my body down. So I can only imagine what it's like trying to get through a fucking men's prison without, that support. And that's something that Kamala Harris made possible for people. So like, that's what I remember when I think about her. So But yeah, so it's that same kind of paternalistic politics of like, this is the best you can ever hope to get. So, don't rock the boat. Otherwise we won't get anything at all.
So it's wild to me that you're describing it as paternalistic politics, because I'm reading Danny Sherson's book, who'll be on next week, which is why I'm reading the book. But he came out with a book called Patriotic Descent, and in it he tries to break down like the three kinds of patriotism that we have here in this country. And the very first one is this sort of like paternalistic, performative, overly performative patriotism. And it's almost like it's feeling to me at least like a very, very similar concept, and especially with the noblesse oblige thrown into it, which is just, my God, this is the most condescending fucking thing in the world to me. Is the idea that somehow our betters feel like they've been tasked to shepherd us little poor fucking peasants, and oh well, we'll make sure that once a year you get your biscuits, but if you're bad, we won't give you your biscuits. And like, oh my, it's so fucking, yeah, they'd be condescending, I think is the word I'm gonna fall back on there, because I lack a better one to describe it. But it's just, it's wild how all of this kind of dovetails. That I was talking to Whitney Webb for a while yesterday, and it was about the main subject of our conversation was about like how all of her work over the last couple of years seems to be writing the same story, but just approaching it from different angles. And
I definitely feel that.
Yeah, I feel like there's a lot of crossover there to what we've been talking about, and especially when you consider someone like Diane Feinstein, who's been on the scene, like not as a casual observer, or even just, this happened during the time when she was, but right there up front as in one of the lead characters in all of these dramas. And I like, dude, I don't want to fucking sit here and be the tinfoil hat dude that was like, yeah, man, Diane Feinstein absolutely had Harvey Milk whacked because, of the fucking obstacles to her own career that his represented. But that's a dead-eyed psychopath right there. Like I showed you earlier. I'm going to put it up again. This is going to be the screenshot for this episode, or the thumbnail for this episode. It's already up on the Rockfin. And by the way, if you're watching this on the Rockfin, thank you and I love you. Make spin this time. But this is Diane Feinstein in all of her glory. That's a corpse. Like, that's straight out of the Jim Henson Creature Shop. And out of all of the pictures that were taken of her in this royal purple fucking jacket with her Margaret Thatcher fucking set of pearls and her gnarled claw-like hands, like, this is the one where her and her staff went, yeah, that's it. That's a keeper. That's the money shot right there. And that conveys zero humanity to me. Like, none. Like, there isn't even an iota of a human being in that picture when I look at it. In fact, it kind of frightens me. Not gonna lie.
Do you know who she reminds me of? You ever seen the movie Snowpiercer?
A long time ago, yeah.
Okay, do you remember the woman who's kind of like, I don't know what you call her. She's kind of like the chief liaison to like the poorer section of the train. She's got this kind of real thick Manchester accent. It's very Thatcher-esque. She's got this very thick Manchester accent, and like she like has the guy's like arm stuck out the train window so that it freezes, and then they like smash it with a hammer and shit. She's got that same kind of like cold-hearted, like, you know, like, we'll fucking just smash you and never feel bad about it. Like look.
Tony watches closely in the chat said she resembles the war lizard that she is. There is something like, and I'm not one of those dudes, man. I'm not. But like, there is something awfully reptilian about that woman's appearance. There's no denying that, you know. Yeah, like even the eyes are a little bit close. That is a horrifying figure right there. It is, no matter what you want to call it. And this again, like they're just this week, Feinstein fucked up enough to where she's stepping down from one of the committees that she's chairing. Mm-hmm. But
judiciary, right?
Yeah. But she's still chair of the Senate Select Intelligence Committee, and as such, it's under her purview to not only allocate all of the funds to all of our intelligence agencies, but to be kept aware of and briefed daily on the activities of those intelligence agencies. That is a frighteningly powerful position for a creature that does not appear to have a soul. I don't know. I don't really have a question for that. That's just my general observation. Is that's someone with entirely too much power, whose husband also has entirely too much power.
And it's wild because the Senate Select Committee on Intelligence was created, or no, maybe it was the House Committee. I don't know. I think what might have been the House Committee. Which one was created after the Church Commission?
That was the House Committee.
That was okay. It was the House Committee.
Yeah. There was.
I guess I don't really know the history of the Senate Committee, but the purpose of those was to create congressional oversight after, you know, the whistle got blown, you know, like the crown jewels and the Church Committee and kind of all the shit that Pentagon Papers that all that kind of revealed was like, hey, maybe we shouldn't give these guys completely unquestioned, you know, power and authority, because when you do, like you said, they snatch college students off the street and pump them full of LSD just to see what happens. You know, overthrow foreign governments, spy on U.S. citizens, you know, assassinate people.
Left and fucking right too, man. Jesus Christ. And the Church Committee never would have happened if a fucking group of activists hadn't broken in to an FBI field office and fucking grabbed the COINTEL documents and
started in Pennsylvania.
Yeah, it started distributing them to anyone who would fucking look at them. Like, that's a beautiful moment in history that not enough people talk about. It's
funny because twice in a decade that happened. There was that, and then there was also the American Indian movement. Found all of the documents when they broke into the Indian Affairs Bureau or whatever it was, the Department of the Interior. I forget which office it was exactly, but yeah, they broke in and got a hold of all the same documents and found out that the government had been skimming off of their, you know, again, paternalistic, you know, funds that were given to reservations and stuff, which are already given next to nothing anyway. You know, so again, it's kind of, you know, do it, break into a place and steal some fucking documents and publish them. Oh, what great! That's right. We have a website for that, right?
Well,
so
we do, but the fate of that website is kind of hanging by a thread right now. We'll be back in DC January 3rd and 4th. Because Vanessa Breitzer, district judge in Julian Assange's rendition hearing and concierge to the U.S. State Department, will read her decision on the morning of the 4th. It'll be like 5 a.m. in D.C. So we're going to hold an event the day prior, a night action with some light projection, hopefully, if that cat is still in D.C. At the time. we'll do another nighttime event. Yeah, and I'm looking like I know it's gonna be miserably cold, dude. I know it is, but I'm still looking forward to it. My fucking California soft ass is not ready for that kind of East Coast winter. It really isn't. And I'm gonna go to Colorado next month for a few days and be cold outdoors. But it'll be different too because Colorado has a completely different kind of cold than DC does. I think only Buffalo is more miserable than Washington DC in January.
DC manages to be a wind tunnel in a way that no city I've ever been to has ever been. I don't understand. Something about the shape of the hills or something. It just kind of channels it.
There's no hiding from it either. You can't duck around a building because the wind's blowing in 6 different directions somehow. It's the weirdest phenomenon. It really is.
We had a protest. We marched in the MLK parade a couple of years ago, and it was like -12 that morning. And you're down near the Anacostia River, and it's just unbelievable. I had like hand warmers stuffed into like the toes of my boots to keep them from freezing. It was just you can't have coffee out. It just like freezes in a couple minutes. Like it's the worst.
I think about shit like that, and I think about Mike Freisner and Adam Kokesh and the whole Winter Soldier thing that they did. And I think in 2010, like in the middle of a fucking blizzard, and I'm like, okay, well, I could probably take my fucking salty ass out there for 2 days and fucking rough it,
Well, hopefully I'll be able to come down and maybe cover you guys this time. I know you guys were up here a couple months ago, but well, I mean, we're all still in lockdown and stuff, so our newsroom isn't open. We're all working from home, and the newsroom is like 2 blocks from the White House. So if I want to run out down there and and talk to you guys, film you guys, whatever I can, but I live like way up in the city, and it would be like an hour and a half trip to get down there and back again. So that was really not really possible during normal work day.
We had some fantastic actions while we were there in September too. We were so loud in front of the British Embassy the first Wednesday that we were there that the Brits complained to Secret Service, who provides security for both the British Embassy, and then immediately next door, the property is the Vice President's residence and a military base, which we didn't know until we got there. Like we learned that day. But to their credit, or at least displaying their disdain for the Brits, when the Brits told the Secret Service, hey, these guys are being really loud, they went, yeah, they're protesting. That's what they're supposed to be, is loud. Suck it up, guys. They're not starting shit. They're just loud. Get over it, kind of thing. And so that was like the one nice interaction we had with the Secret Service. And I guess after I left, they were like, not that I had anything to do with it, because I didn't talk to any of these fuckers, because I don't talk to cops, but they were less kind to Andrew in the weeks that ensued that we were there. That was the whole weird time, man. Josh and I were waking up at like 1:30, 2 o'clock in the morning so that we could give real-time updates on Julian's hearing, live streaming it. So for like 2.5 weeks, dude, we were up and on the air around 2 a.m. live streaming for 4 or 5 hours, and then I'd go to work and fucking try not to cut my fucking fingers off. And then come back and do more live streaming, and it was exhausting. It was, but it was good. I'm glad that this upcoming trip is only going to be a few days, though. Weeks at a time is that 20 or 22 or 23 hours a day is taxing. And I think that's the longest tangent we're going to go on today. I do know that Josh really wanted to talk to you about some of the Space Force stuff that you went through a little bit with Misty and Jesse. And it is absolutely fascinating. It really is. So if you want to kind of transition into a conversation about Space Force, that would be super. I don't know how much time you have. We probably got about another, at least I have probably about another half an hour or so that I can be on for a bit, and then we'll be back around 3. But yeah,
I'm free. Let's do it.
Let's talk some Space Force, man. I think a lot of people are erroneously under the assumption that Space Force was a brand new creation under Donald Trump. So maybe we should start there.
Okay. Well, I mean, the formal separation of the, creating a 6th branch of the military was something that Trump did. But there's been a U.S. Space Command since the 80s. There's been U.S. space assets, since the 60s, obviously. And that includes not just like satellites and all that stuff, but also like space-based weapons or weapons to intercept things in space, including, basically as soon as the Soviet Union launched Sputnik 1 in 1957, the U.S. was trying to figure out a way to shoot it down. And this is the wild thing, is that right now the U.S. is like, oh, Russia tested an anti-satellite missile, or something like that. Or a stalker satellite or whatever. But the U.S. was setting off nuclear weapons in space in the early 60s just to see what would happen, see if they could knock out a satellite, just to see what happens. Like they fired a particle beam in space for like 5 minutes. They used an F-15 to shoot down a fucking satellite with a missile. Like they have done everything that you can imagine. They tried, no. They tried to, one of my favorite things that sounds like science fiction and totally isn't was Project Thor. Have you ever heard of this? Project Thor?
No,
sometimes they call it. Sometimes they call it rods from God. Basically, it's this idea. It's a kinetic energy weapon, which would technically not violate the Outer Space Treaty, which was a 1967 agreement where people basically said, look, we won't put weapons in space. It's not a binding thing. It's just kind of a pledge. But basically what they do is they said, what if we took a telephone-sized rod of pure tungsten, which is like the heaviest, like densest metal that there is, and put it in a satellite and then just dropped it from space on top of a city or on top of a fortified installation or a bunker or something like that. And this rod would be going so fast by the time it hit the ground, it would strike with the kinetic energy of a nuclear weapon. And just, no radiation, but it would just punch through absolutely anything that you could possibly muster up. And just be this devastating weapon. And it sounds like science fiction, but I read an article about this a couple of years ago about how they keep trying to bring it back. They keep, like, every kind of decade or so, maybe 2 decades, they revive this idea again and are like, how can we do this fucking mustache twirling space weapon? Again, is it feasible now? Is it feasible in the 2010s? Is it feasible in the 2020? You know what I mean? So, and it's a proven technology. Like the U.S. used this technology on a much smaller scale in Vietnam. They I forget what they called them, but there was like a little rod like this big or so, just of steel, and they put little fins on it so that it would fall down instead of tumbling. And they would drop it out the back of a plane from like 10,000 feet or so, and by the time it hit the ground, it could go through 3 inches of solid concrete, just from kinetic energy. And so they know that this shit works. But yeah, so Project Thor.
Call them lazy dogs.
What's that? Lazy dogs. That's what it is. Dogs. Yeah. So it's just like a giant lazy dog. And here's the weird thing. a couple years ago, I just wrote a story because there was like rumblings about Project Thor, and I was like, let's talk about this because whatever you call them, tungsten thunderbolts, I think is a term out there for them, rods from God, whatever. I like rods from God. It's pretty fucking like epic. But and here's the thing,
I guarantee
this is some supervillain shit
called rods from God. I
Damn it, Steve.
Oh boy. Okay. Anyway, so here's the weird thing. I was researching Space Force stuff, and I was reading through like other documents because Space Force was only stood up, like it only officially became a force last December. So they've been putting out in the past year like documents, like doctrinal documents about like how do we understand what our job is, and like kind of that whole kind of thing. And they did like a space strategy report that was kind of like basically how do we fight a war in space or over space, and in that there is this picture, and I put it in a article. I don't remember which one it is. It was an article about space-based weapons. Let's see, I don't know, Space Force weapons Thor, and yeah, this one, U.S. Space Force faults Russia, China for militarizing space, which Pentagon did decades ago. And I found this picture in the little insert picture, like an illustration in the side of this Pentagon document, and it has a picture of what really looks to me like an attempt at like a rods from God, Project Thor type of weapon. It's a big satellite, and there's a bunch of rods in it, and one of them is starting to slide out. There's no caption on the picture. There's no description. There's nothing on that page that mentions what this might be. It's just in there. And so I'm like, are they trying? Because they are trying to bring back like space weapons and trying to say, oh, well, it's Russia's fault. It's China's fault. So we have to build space weapons. But like, that's bullshit, obviously.
Well, I mean, if you don't have a space force, then you're just gonna let the space Mexicans in, or space ISIS, and I mean, you gotta have something to prevent. It's cartoon. I mean, the fact that we were blowing up nukes in space since what, the 60s, is just. I mean, if you look at the U.S. military's approach to nuclear warfare in general, like, and the atomic bomb tests and where they chose to do it and how they chose to deal with the civilian populations there, they probably felt like downright humanitarians by setting off nukes in space by comparison. And again, just to see if they could nudge a satellite or damage or, potentially destroy a satellite. That's an act of war. I don't know how or why there weren't substantial repercussions from the Russian government when the U.S. military aimed and shot a nuke at their satellite.
Well, the U.S. blew up its own satellite.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. No, yeah. They had these weapons trained on Soviet satellites in case they needed to use them.
And this
had
Star Wars.
Yes, this was 20 years before Star Wars. So yeah, and Star Wars.
Know what Star Wars was? Because we can go into that a little bit too. So if the chat is only marginally familiar with that program, I'm sure we could discuss it anyway. But yeah, that was like, I grew up. I was like 6 or 8 when Reagan officially launched the Star Wars project. And I mean, when you're 6 years old, it sounds really cool. But in fact, it was a massive failure and a waste of billions of dollars or hundreds of millions of dollars. And so yeah, let's talk a little Star Wars.
Okay, so the official name was the Strategic Defense Initiative, and it was basically an attempt to build a space-based interception network that would be able to intercept Soviet nuclear weapons missiles before they hit their targets. And they were going to use lasers, they were going to use missiles, they were going to do all kinds of stuff. It didn't really amount to anything. It was a colossal waste of money. And I think there was an estimate in like 87, 88 that it was like by 2000, this is going to cost us like something like $1 trillion, like which was it's an ungodly amount now. It was an ungodly amount back then too. So, yeah, but that was the era that actually was when they created U.S. Space Command. I think 1985 is when they created Space Command. So it really it didn't accomplish its goal, but it did push U.S. space assets in a new direction. Like the U.S. did wind up launching a bunch of early warning satellites and stuff like that. They built the ground-based mid-course defense, which are ground-based interceptors that shoot down ICBMs and ballistic missiles when they're in space, because the missiles go up into space and then they come back down and hit their targets. And that was so that there's a lot of I guess advances that came out of that. They didn't get what they wanted, but they did get a kind of
when you launch a nuke. When you launch a nuke, does it break the Van Allen belt or does it stay below it?
I don't know where the Van Allen belt begins, but some of them can go up to 750 miles up before they come back down again. When you consider that space begins at just 62 miles up, and the ISS orbits at like, I want to say 120 miles or 150 miles up or so. So like, you could be on the International Space Station and like watch an ICBM go up, past your window on one side and come down on the other. So I don't know what's going on with the light in here and the reflection, but like when I put my hand up, suddenly I'm not like washed out anymore.
Huh.
So I don't know. It's not particularly sunny.
I'm in is basically outdoors. I've got to adjust the levels on my camera like constantly, or else I'll be yellow or I'll totally wash out. It's a headache. I'm not gonna lie.
But yes, that's what the SDI was. It was dumb. It was another thing to try and convince the Soviets to spend ungodly amounts of money so that they would like just wreck their economy. The 600 ship navy and like all this other crap. The stealth fighter program and all this stuff was just an attempt to get the Soviets. The funding the Mujahideen in Afghanistan. Funding the anti-communist forces in Angola and kind of all Nicaragua, the Contras and all this stuff was just an attempt to like get the Soviets to just spend themselves into bankruptcy, and it kind of worked in some respect.
Well, yeah, to the point to where we had on the cover of Time magazine a caricature of Boris Yeltsin in 1992 with the title "Yanks to the Rescue" and the subheading like basically saying how United States intelligence interfered in Russia's election.
Oh, that was 96, I think.
96?
Because he was, I think it was 96. No, I think so. It was, he was at risk of losing his election and the U.S. intervened. Talk about election interference. Intervened because the pro-communist candidate was going to win. And we're like, no, Yeltsin. So we definitely helped Yeltsin, which is great because like the guy like couldn't drink himself out of a paper bag.
Right.
I hate Yeltsin.
Can we talk about that for a minute? Like
about Yeltsin's alcoholism or just like 1990s Russia?
Yeltsin's career, 1990s Russia. Why the overall animosity?
All right, so
Get
Boris
into that for a
Yeltsin,
minute, because I'd be like,
yeah.
I
So
give a fuck about
basically,
alcohol is, but yeah, you're right. It was 96.
yeah. So the Soviet Union, you have to realize, Union of Soviet Socialist Republics was 15 different republics that were part of a single country. One of which was the Russian Federative Soviet Socialist Republic, and there was other ones for Ukraine, Estonia, Azerbaijan, Uzbekistan, and so on. And Yeltsin was the president of the Russian RSFSR, which was for like ethnic Russians mostly, and there were some other groups in there too. And so he kind of positioned himself as this kind of like nationalist, anti-Soviet, anti-communist, pro-democracy figure, absolutely with U.S. backing in the same way that a lot of the other figures in that era were. Solidarity in Poland and so on too. Václav Havel in Czechoslovakia and so on. Just kind of to undermine the socialist system. And there was a protest in August 1991, and there was like kind of a half-hearted coup attempt, I guess you could call it, where they tried to get rid of Gorbachev. Gorbachev was the premier or president, I guess, of the Soviet Union overall at that point. And there was kind of some Communist Party of the Soviet Union, like hardliners, who objected to his, kind of wild and rampant liberalization policies and tried to get rid of him. And there was some sections of the military that were really against. They were kind of very, very pro Gorbachev, pro Shevardnadze, and intervened to stop the Soviet Council of Ministers from basically supporting this this move by these anti-Gorbachev forces. And Yeltsin situated himself as the leader of that movement. And there's a picture of him standing on top of a tank and stuff, in Moscow and whatever, and really kind of catapulted him to national and international fame as this kind of champion of freedom or whatever.
And this freedom, like standing on a tank.
Right. And so he was the president of Russia. And so when the Soviet Union was dissolved, and he was one of the big figures that really helped to lead to its dissolution, what happened was all these republics just declared independence. Estonia, Lithuania, Uzbekistan, and Russia kind of led the charge on that. And you can't have a Soviet Union without Russia. Russia is the biggest republic by far. So when he pulled out and declared independence for Russia, that was basically the end of the USSR. And so he then now emerged as, he had basically been kind of a glorified governor. Now he's the leader of a fucking country. And there was obviously a lot of people who were upset about that. And so that was in 1991. And then 2 years later, because the Soviet structure, the system of Soviet just means council in Russian.
Yeah.
And so it was a structure of councils that went all the way back, all the way from the top down into the farms and the factories and workplaces and stuff. And that whole system governing production and politics and stuff still existed. And because the Supreme Soviet still existed, which was the Soviet Congress. And they were trying to block a lot of these neoliberal programs that Yeltsin was trying to force through, that were really undoing the core of the socialist system of government control over the economy and selling off state-owned industries and stuff like that, which were inevitably bought up by Western industries who sold them off, and so on. And the Supreme Soviet tried to block that, and so he wound up sending the Russian military to bombard the White House where the Soviet Parliament met, the Supreme Soviet. And there's an incredible picture of the Parliament building on fire in 1993 from that, and so he kind of forced them to surrender in that. And so the U.S. kind of really supported Yeltsin through all of this. 1996, middle of there was the Chechen War in the middle of that, and that was kind of a catastrophe in itself. And so the U.S. really kind of helped orchestrate his election victory in 1996. And him and Clinton was kind of like his. I mean, he turned Russia into a client state, is what he did. And by 1998, the Russian ruble had collapsed completely, and it was a fucking economic catastrophe that Russia only recovered from under Vladimir Putin. So there it is. Yeah. Wonderful picture there from I want to say December 1993. Well, not December from that jean jacket that guy's wearing, but
well, they are Russian.
I mean, it's true. I mean,
and it could have been a balmy
July.
Could have been a balmy 7 degrees Celsius or something like that.
But yeah, so I mean, people who say that the Soviet system or socialism was overthrown peacefully are lying. Is really what it comes down to. And pictures like this are proof. So he wouldn't have been able to do that if he didn't have U.S. support. And the U.S. made sure that he stayed in power for another 4 years. So that's my rant about why I hate Boris Yeltsin.
That he turned Russia into more or less, I don't know if client state or like mafia state is a better way to describe it, because I mean, really, this is where you saw the sort of birth or rebirth of Russian oligarchs who were no more than like individual capos, fighting with each other over more control of industry or trade or vice or whatever it was that was making money. Also, the emergence of the Adidas tracksuit as the official uniform for Russian mobster.
Looks good when you squat,
and comfortable. Hey, look, dude, I've got two, and I'm not even Russian. I actually had my last name is Finnish.
I was gonna say Putin is his Finnish name, isn't it?
Yeah, and a rare one even in Finland. Like, there's less than 600 families in the country that have that name. Like from a fairly like localized area of the nation state. I think there's actually more of us now in America than there were in Finland. I don't know. It's an adopted last name, so I haven't really dug into the history of it too much. But I do know an unfortunate amount about the War of 1939, the Russo-Finnish War. There's actually a really great book that I read called A Frozen Hell. That is a fascinating walkthrough of that war, and the use of like guerrilla war tactics in the snow. So if you're anywhere remotely like me and like just need a little corner of your brain for how to conduct guerrilla warfare, a book for that. A buddy of mine said that did not play hockey, but was always asking me questions about like hockey fights. Like how do you like would question me thoroughly because I played hockey all my life growing up and shit like that. So he was asking me all these like fight questions and shit, and I'm like, are you just interested in hearing stories about me getting my ass beat or me beating up somebody else, or are you going somewhere with this? And he's like, well, you never know when you're gonna have to fight on skates. Like straight, I might have to fight on skates sometime. Motherfucker, we're in Arizona, like okay, but ever since ever since that conversation, I'm like, maybe it is worthwhile to know how to conduct guerrilla warfare in a blizzard or fucking fight somebody at a really, because I think we're headed to a very odd place.
Well, probably not in the snow.
You never know. I mean, because
future.
So we found out a week or so ago, at least according to the individual that provided this information, there's probably only going to be like 5 more years of large scale farming before the climate becomes unsustainable for it. But what that means is periods of massive heat followed by periods of impossible cold. Like there's no pick one extreme and that's what you're going to have to deal with. It's going to be at multiple extremes of all weather scenarios, which in and of itself is enough to make you want to overthrow your government. But not that I'm advocating for that, for a peaceful overthrow. Jason Burmis is actually calling for people to storm without weapons their local government buildings on December 10th, which is International Human Rights Day. We have a number of Assange events throughout the globe planned for that day as well. I kind of like the irony of using a manufactured holiday that's supposed to make the West look morally superior against them.
Yeah.
And that kind of brings us back to the paternalistic politics, like
Diane Feinstein.
the hubris of the West to even announce something like Human Rights Day. And just the complete irony of it when the US and the UK, but Five Eyes countries in general, have just historically annihilated, raped, and pillaged the global South, Mideast. It's a fucking cartoon. It really is. The Australians right now are having to come to grips with the fact that David McBride, the whistleblower responsible for the Afghan war leaks, was 100% right in everything that he delivered. Consortium News tried to have a live stream about it last night and got fucked with so hard that they had to fucking they had to reschedule, and they're just kind of crossing their fingers and here, and why they haven't got on alternative platforms is beyond me. But I'm not Joe or Kathy or Liz, so I can't answer that question. But yeah, dude, they got brutalized yesterday. 30 seconds in, just hardcore buffering, and then you'd refresh the screen. You would kind of get audio, but the screen would be frozen, and then it would jump to like 3 minutes ahead, and they were getting hammered, dude. And I think they're broadcasting out of London. So that's GCHQ or MI6 that's doing that. I don't even know why I'm mentioning any of this. I really don't. It was just a fucking thing. This is how I work, dude. We're all getting frightening glimpses into the inner workings of my brain. But for some reason haven't dropped like all of the viewers. Stoked. Morgan, I do need to get out of here. Will you play like in the next 10 minutes or something like that? Will you leave us with some final thoughts, and please let people know where they can find all of your work, and just thank you so much. I really enjoy these conversations. I learned stuff, and you don't mind when I go on ridiculous tangents. It works out.
I mean, tangents are the funnest part sometimes, like there's the plan, and then there's like where the plan takes you, where you wind up. So no, it doesn't bother me at all. I don't know. Don't follow leaders and watch your parking meters. I don't fucking know. Like, I don't know what kind of benediction you want, man.
I'm still in that one. That's great.
The old Bob Dylan. Oh man, that's a dude. That dude is just a fascinating character in and of himself. And there's like the whole Tavistock conspiracy angle with Bob Dylan. Like, was he a product? Was he, like a manufactured thing, entity to deactivate people, to make them think that they knew what was going on, but to keep them sort of complacent? And then there was that whole like period of Bob Dylan's career where he would just get up on stage and ramble about like Judaism for fucking 45 minutes and then break into Slow Train Coming, and like that was the show. Like, weird cat, man. Lots of good stuff in the Traveling Wilburys, though. I'll give him that.
I mean, sometimes, especially with them folk singers, like I kind of dig the whole like narrative thing. Like I grew up listening to the Clancy Brothers, and like their live stuff is like, we're just gonna like go off on this tangent about when we were growing up. And by the way, here's this Yeats poem that we really love, and that's gonna like slowly transition into this song about like fuck the English. And it's like, that's just fun, like I like it. I don't mind.
My favorite storyteller right now, singer-songwriter, is Todd Snyder. And I've been a fan for 25 years or something like that now. And every Sunday morning, an hour before this show starts, he does a live stream called the First Church of Agnostic Hope and Wonder. And it's just him in his music room at his house in Nashville, fucking, playing a series of stringed instruments in his tunes and telling stories about it. And it's just like, with all of the incredibly dark shit that we cover on this show and the direction that our country and our planet is headed, like I can't recommend enough just taking an hour out of it to go listen to some fucking storytelling hippie play guitar for a little bit, like, get out of your head a little bit. And for the last month or so, he's been going through his records, just playing, each record start to finish. And I'm letting everybody know how old I am because I'm still using the word record. And today he was going through a concept album that he did during the Bush years, and it's called Peace Queer. And the concept is he was kidnapped by aliens, and instead of them running probes on him, they made him write protest songs. And that's the album. Is that. And I mean, listening to it, like, he's got this just perfect fucking folk singer delivery. Like, that's a gift, man. It is, to be able to just tell that story, turn on a dime, hit the punchline, and then go right into the song. Like that. I enjoy it quite a bit. I do.
That guy's a trip.
Huh?
I said that guy's a trip.
Snyder?
Yeah.
Oh, he's great, man. He's great. He's got a story that's wound up on a couple albums about the first time that he ate mushrooms in high school, and how he was like on the football team, not because he wanted to, but because his brother was good at sports and his dad was good at sports. So they made him play sports, and he eats this handful of mushrooms, and about 45 minutes later realizes that he's never going to football practice again for as long as he lives. It's good stuff, man. And then
Speaking of mushrooms, in DC, I'm sorry, I didn't realize to cut off your middle of your story.
No, it's okay.
I thought you were around in the corner. DC just passed a proposition that legalized the consumption of decriminalization was the term that they used.
Yeah.
So yeah, it legalized psilocybin mushrooms and other stuff. So
And
insofar as we have the power to do that.
Is that kind of like the cannabis rules where you can't leave your house with it in your pocket and no one can ever know that it's on your person, and you can only get high in your house? Or
I don't know the process of distribution and stuff, because like the weed dispensaries here are really weird. Like it's like you buy something else and they kind of give it to you like as like a treat for coming in, basically. Like it's like a bonus, like a McDonald's toy.
Yeah, here's your gift for buying a $75 bumper sticker.
Basically, yeah. And that's kind of how they get around it. I have no idea how it's supposed to work, or if it includes cultivation or any of that. But I do know I voted for it
in Santa Cruz
a couple weeks ago.
In Santa Cruz County, where I am, we did this last year, where all entheogens are decriminalized now. All plant-based psychedelics, not just psilocybin, but all of them, and cultivation is decriminalized as well. And you can drive around all over the county as long as you've got an ounce or less on you. It's perfectly legal or decriminalized or whatever. I need to look into that, because the last time we were in DC, I had to call up an old bandmate of mine who lives in Annapolis now and have him run through one day. Got to be like, look, presents, hang out for a bit. So I'll make it much easier, because I don't trip putting like a weed pen and a cartridge in my pocket when I fly. And if I'm going from a legal state to a legal district, then it in theory shouldn't be a problem for me.
The airport's in Virginia.
Airports in Virginia, no matter how you look at it, both airports really. And God, I hate flying into fucking was it Dulles?
Dulles is
out in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah,
it's in DC.
It's awful.
Sucks.
You got to take like a bus shuttle to get to the end of the metro line. Like, yeah, it's it was almost an $80 Uber in February because I fucked up and I didn't the flight schedule coming into Reagan didn't jive with when I needed to leave and when I needed to be there, so I had to fly into Dulles. And dude, it was almost $80. I didn't even take an Uber. That was a cab. I hadn't even downloaded the app yet. But yeah, like one of those DC cabs. Ridiculous, man. God. If you had bought a rental car and driven, it wouldn't have been much less. I mean, all the toll roads they put in over in Virginia now, like it's absurd. It's offensive. So you didn't save, you didn't spend that much more money by hailing a taxi.
I don't want to drive in DC. I hated it every time Andrew's like, here, you do it now, because he lives in Ohio, so he can drive to DC when we do this stuff. And yeah, every time he handed me the keys, I got hella nervous, because I don't like. I used to not mind. I'd get my like San Francisco Russian cabbie, fucking like that sort of mentality where like my vehicle is a tank and you're going to get out of my way and I'm going to go 80 and I'm going to switch lanes whenever I want to and fuck you, but dude,
I know that I've been to that rodeo.
Always get the Russian cabbies when you go to San Francisco, dude.
Oh, hell yes. I had one on.
One of the funnest taxi rides in my life was from it was in St. Petersburg to get to Pulkovo Airport. Because it's again same situation. You get to the end of the subway line and you got to catch a cab to get to or a bus to get to the airport. And it's 12:30 in the morning, and this guy, like, I just kind of handed him. I was getting out of the country. I was kind of handing him a couple $100 rubles. It was like, just get me to the airport in one piece. And it was like me and my girlfriend and like this dude's like 8-year-old kid in the back seat as we're kind of doing this like crazy taxi, kind of bumping along through like the horribly paved roads of southern St. Petersburg at 1 o'clock in the morning. It was fucking great.
I had some Russian cabbies like in my phone because I tipped well. So they're like, here, you call me if you need a ride. And oh my God, those guys scared the shit out of me, but fuck, it was fun.
Dude, the Russian cabbies in San Francisco will get you wherever you want to go earlier than you ever thought you could get there,
Right.
with enough time left over to score whatever drugs or humans you're looking for. And fuck it, like I just full service individuals there, and just wild. I can't tell you how many times I've been in a fucking cab in San Francisco, hit another car. Like the cabbie will fucking sideswipe a vehicle and just keep going.
Like, meh.
Like no hesitation. Like maybe a little bit of a fuck you, like over their shoulder. But and like that's it, dude. And yeah, as a spectator, it's great. I don't think I could do it as the pilot though. I don't know.
I miss those days.
Thank you so much. Please do let people know where they can find your work, and you do excellent work for Sputnik. So
yeah, thank you.
The folks that are watching should be reading you.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Yeah,
I love your writing.
I write for Sputnik for the most part. You can also find my work occasionally on Liberation News, and I'm on Twitter doing my everyday stuff at Lavender N Red, letter N in the colors lavender and red. So.
Well, that's gonna do it for on behalf of all free-thinking people everywhere. I would like to say fuck Diane Feinstein, and I hope she has a painful death.
Don't forget about Elon.
And we didn't even get to Elon Musk.
Yeah, we barely. Shit. I fucking.
I got a bunch of.
Huh?
I got a bunch of shit about like how he's like basically like written into his Starlink internet stuff like a Declaration of Independence for Mars. It's
shit.
Fucking great shit.
I mean, if you got a couple more minutes, we can do that. I want to hear.
Yeah, I'm in no rush. I thought you had to get out of here.
All right. Well, I did. I've got some shit I need to do, but I can. I want to hear the envelope a little bit.
Okay. Sure. All right. So basically, you mentioned earlier that he's got this like massive, like broadband satellite internet thing going, Starlink, which is just a disaster. A couple of weeks ago, one of their satellites crashed back to Earth.
Isn't it the one that Zuckerberg bought too? Wasn't that the Facebook one?
Maybe, I don't know. I thought it was one of the Starlink ones, but I mean, they've launched so many. SpaceX has.
Yeah, and the last batch of like 50 or 60 that went up, there were a couple of communication satellites that were owned by private corporations. One of them was Facebook, because Zuckerberg has this I'm going to digitally recolonize the global south, starting with Africa and India project going on. That's just fucking horrific. Absolutely horrific. Cory Morningstar has done some excellent work exposing that. But yeah, I'm sorry, continue.
Yeah, well, yeah, what they do is SpaceX, what they do is they pile because the satellites aren't very big now. They're these little CubeSats. They're like a couple feet across. They're not like the monstrosities you build in a fucking stadium. You know what I mean? Like they're very small. And what they do is they pile like 30 or 40 of them on one rocket and then launch the rocket. And so it's like, for the most part, it's going to be like a bunch of Starlink or whatever. But then it's also like, oh, so-and-so company, like they sell the spots to like, I don't know, some like, let's say, I don't know, apple orchard, in upstate New York wants a satellite up there to monitor the weather, in the southern tier or what the fuck ever. And they like, buy a spot on this rocket and launch the rocket up, and it just pops them out one at a time, and they all kind of pop out and go to their places. So it's this kind of whole, it's actually very impressive considering how they used to do it not that long ago. But I guess that's the commercial, aspect to it. But yeah, so Starlink is supposed to be a broadband thing, and there's going to be, the idea is these satellites orbit really close to the Earth, and there's going to be like thousands of them, and so the idea is that it'll be broadband internet or whatever. But they just started launching these, and they released, what did they release? The terms of use, the terms of service. And they released the beta document a couple of weeks ago, and I read through the beta document, and there is a clause in there, and I have to read you this. So it says, if you agree, if you use the Starlink internet, it says that if you use it, if you're on a trip to Mars, in which he wants to launch, spaceships to Mars, colony ships to Mars or whatever, it says if you used it to get broadband and internet on your trip to Mars, the party, quote, the parties recognize Mars as a free planet and that no Earth-based government has authority or sovereignty over Martian activities. Accordingly, disputes will be settled through self-governing principles established in good faith at the time of Martian settlement. So there is some like moon is a harsh mistress type shit going on with Elon Musk's colonization of Mars plan that he's been beating these drums out for a while about, like, we're gonna like, send these kind of people out there and they're gonna, like, they'll probably die, but we'll eventually establish a colony on Mars, kind of thing. And he said that too. He's like, most people will go, we'll probably die, but hopefully some of them will live, and then we'll, have a Mars colony. But yeah, so he's setting it up that, like, that's gonna be his grab for power. He's gonna be president of Mars, dictator of Mars, whatever.
We're getting close to like Futurama territory, where it's just a head in a case that's making all of the decisions for people. I like, why would you not? Is that because you have foreknowledge that this particular planet is not going to be able to recover fast enough from the damage that you and your billionaire friends have done to it? So you have to go ahead and establish space colonies in order to get away from the destruction that you brought upon yourself, sort of thing?
Yeah, I mean, also maybe like they took Total Recall a little too seriously, and they think there's going to be some like alien technology, terraforming shit they're going to discover in the crust or something.
What concerns me more about Musk isn't Total Recall style shit. It's more Universal Soldier style shit, and the Neuralink program, and the fact that this guy, like, wants you to be hooked into the cloud, and I am not a fan of transhumanism. I'm not. The idea of becoming one with the machine doesn't appeal to me in the least. And
you don't want Elon Musk to be your Borg queen?
I would prefer that not happen. Yeah.
Hell yeah.
I would opt out. And it's nothing against Elon Musk, or it's not like I have a preferred Borg queen in mind. I would rather that not be a thing. but I mean, that seems to be his primary function, is cool, laid back tech nerd billionaire / transhumanist guru, and the nefarious part of all of that is that a lot of these things are already underway. These projects are already underway in development, and there's been no room for like the public input. There's been no vote. There's been no platform. There's been no proposition put forth. It's just, we'd like to stick a device will connect you to the cloud. Ain't it cool? Creeps me out. It really does. And again, man, he gets no criticism in the media whatsoever. Like for whatever reason, he's the good billionaire, or like, are on our side because he got high with Joe Rogan once, and everybody gets high with Joe Rogan, right? He's super
Hated
acceptable.
Grimes. I mean, he's got it going.
I totally
He's cool.
want to know whose body was in the trunk of that car that he shot into space. Like, if I ever get up to Oregon and catch Elon high as draft pussy, I'm straight up gonna be like, okay, whose corpse is in
the car?
Whose corpse is in the car? I know there's a body or two in that roadster. You just come on, man. You can tell me. The science fiction comic book nature of Elon Musk and his activities, like, I'm gonna shoot a car into space and it's gonna cost like $90 million, and I said I'd fix Flint, but car into space. Like, isn't that more important? Like, do you remember when Elon Musk tried to interfere with the rescue of people who were
just thinking of that in Thailand?
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. And then they were like, no, we got it handled. We don't need this. Fuck off. And he was like, well, you're a fucking pedophile. And then the guy sued the shit out of him for it. And he was like, no, I didn't say he was a pedophile. I was saying Boo Earns. And he was like he deleted all his tweets and shit. Like, yeah.
And again, there was like hardly any scrutiny about this. And it's not like we're talking about an event in the distant past. This was just a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
And I really don't, I don't understand why, especially media, is so incurious about this dude, and I don't know if I ever will. Like, it's not like I get a chance to talk to people who I generally disagree with in terms of the way that they go about doing their journalism or their show or whatever it is. Like, so I'm not going to get an answer, but like, I've heard some of these guys with incredibly large platforms say really fucking flattering things about Elon Musk. And it's like, did you not know who this guy is? Like, are you only reading like positive press releases? And kind of bring it full circle, the whole bailout of Tesla several years back during the Obama administration was spearheaded by Diane Feinstein and her husband, Richard Bloom.
Did not know that.
Yeah.
There you go. It looped around.
Bloom, or his real estate group, owns the entire stretch of property along the, what is that? I think it's the 880. Anyway, in between like Fremont and Oakland. And that's where the Tesla plant is. That's where the Solyndra factories were. Which was a huge scandal during the Obama administration that people totally fucking memory hold. But there was a moment there early on in the Obama years when we were going to make a big push for solar, and we were going to capture the worldwide solar market, and people freaked out over the amount that the government wanted to invest in Solyndra, and it was like chump change. Absolutely.
I remember the Solyndra.
And then the Chinese outspent what the US government put by a factor of like 100. And there are like entire towns now in provincial China that are solar farms, and the 30 million or whatever they threw at Solyndra went to executive bonuses, some real estate purchases, and then the company went tits up. And yeah, again, that was spearheaded in general by Feinstein, by her husband, his real estate group. Also dipping into the realm of conspiracy, California had a proposed high-speed rail that Richard Bloom and his real estate organization were very, very adamant about. And the exact path of the California wildfires in 2016 was almost a straight line of the proposed rail, or the proposed fucking trajectory of high-speed rail. And that's when people started breaking out the direct energy weapon theories about the wildfires, and like, why are, you know, aluminum rims being melted to the asphalt, but there are still perfectly good standing living trees 12 feet away. And just weird stuff.
I didn't realize that her husband was a real estate guy, because at the time that Dan White shot Harvey Milk and Mayor Moscone, he was under investigation by a secret investigation by the FBI for potential corruption in a real estate deal with a guy that Diane Feinstein had put him in contact with, a guy that she, when she became mayor, supported the construction of, like, handed a lot of contracts for like skyscrapers and shit in San Francisco in the 80s. And so, like, they were all plugged into that same real estate, like, corruption kind of deal. I mean, they were the people who financed her campaign to become a city councilor in the first place.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Let me see. I had the original. So it's Bloom Capital, but the real estate firm is CB Richard Ellis. And I do believe that it's that firm that was awarded like all of the skyscraper contracts in San Francisco. They've done, like, Feinstein has done nothing but further enrich her immediate family. And yeah, no, you're right. There was a whole thing with Dan White in a fucking FBI investigation, and there was no conclusion to that. They just dropped that when he went to court, right?
Right. They just kind of dropped the investigation. Yeah. It was a probe, is what it was. They didn't charge him with anything.
Okay.
But yeah, it was definitely, it was shit that, like, kind of later played out, like I said, in the 80s, that it was kind of like, okay, there was like some corruption going on here, but like it didn't matter because he had killed himself by then. Dan White did.
Killed himself. I know. the whole, like, his suicide was always questionable. But when you look at all of the characters involved in that whole fucking tragedy, it would be easy to make an argument that he was helped out. And San Francisco is just one of the most corrupt fucking cities on the planet. When Feinstein was mayor, she went on this Puritan rampage and wanted to shut down all the fucking porn theaters and shit. And in the mid 80s, Hunter S. Thompson was the night manager at the O'Farrell, I think the O'Farrell brothers, like, I don't know, fucking house-o strippers and pancakes, and boy did he rail against Feinstein for her, you know, war on pornography. This is also right at the same time that Robert Bork made the, I don't know what porn, or there's like,
right, I know it when I see it.
I know it when I see it. Yeah, I can't define pornography, but I know it when I see it. That's that whole era. And
that was the anti-obscenity ruling.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it, you know, it like dovetailed with the PMRC hearings and warning labels on music, and shit like that. And one of the most, if you want to work out for a minute, go watch the PMRC hearings and listen to Frank Zappa and give testimony during that. He just
I've seen that before. Yeah,
he tears their faces off. It's tremendous. The way that music reacted to PMRC, I don't think you could get popular musicians in this era to do that. You know,
didn't Metallica go down there too and like testify, or am I thinking of something else?
No, it was pre-Metallica, I think, or they were. Who was it?
Metallica was Napster. It was the when the streaming stuff started.
Mm-hmm.
That's what that was. Yeah.
South Park did a great fucking stand-up of that, where they were showing James Hadfield looking very sad. And like the RIAA broke into fucking Kyle's house or something, kidnapped him and took him to James Hadfield's house. And they're like, and he's sad because because of Napster and because of file sharing, he's gonna have to wait 3 months before he can get a solid gold swimming pool. And like, oh dude, they went after Metallica, and they should have. They should have, dude. Dude. And according to Sleepy Josh, they're back on that shit again. Right? Do you want to shed a little light on that, Josh?
Say that again. I was distracted.
Like the RIA going after fucking.
Oh yeah, they're going after source code repositories for like YouTube download. Which the EFF, they basically got that struck down, thankfully. So they're repost back. But yeah, they're going hard after streams with music on it. Like just nuking.
Oh, I heard about this.
Yeah, all kinds of stuff. Like
Twitch players were worried about it.
Yeah, so like you've got Twitch players deleting years worth of archives and shit, and like, but yeah, they're doing another Napster style push again this year. So it's gonna. I hope they don't start suing 13-year-olds again.
Right. Well, if you wanted an administration that would be incredibly friendly towards suing 13-year-olds, Biden Harris is the fucking go-to for you.
Right.
Like, we're talking about someone in Kamala Harris who really tried to lock up a homeless woman because her kids were truant to school.
And I think her kid had like health problems and stuff. It wasn't just like, a lazy parent.
And the mom had health problems too.
Yeah, it's Harris is a monster, man.
Dude, when she giggles at her own lack of humanity,
it's scarier than Hillary's. I swear to God, because she hasn't learned to tone it down a little bit. Like I forgot what Misty called
had
it.
To.
Yeah, dude, it's like that's
Misty
evil.
had a word for it.
Yeah, I forgot the word, but it was good.
Shit.
I'm gonna have to start writing down her words.
And the only reason that she's not telling us what it is right now in chat is because Deepa Driver's show, and she's probably watching Deepa.
Probably.
But fuck, what was it?
I don't know.
Anyway, man, Harris does this thing where like when you confront her over her total callousness, she like giggles. And it's a reflex, and there's a psychological term for it. And I can't fucking remember what it is. Oh God, we've even talked about it on the show. Somebody's asking what happened to LimeWire. LimeWire got sued into oblivion, from what I remember. Mm-hmm. Like they got buried. They fucking and fuck LimeWire anyway, because it was like 8 billion viruses per one fucking song you download. I found out the hard way. I went through like 3 laptops before I finally was like, I should try a different file sharing. But we should be able to do that with music. We should be like, it should be You should be able to share the music that you enjoy with your friends without having the RIA sue you over it. And that's essentially what Napster was and LimeWire was, just on a much larger scale. And look, dude, I understand what it's like to be a working musician. I've been a working musician. I never got to the we're pushing an album phase of that. Like, we didn't even want to. We just wanted to fucking gig 5 nights a week and make some money and, you know, hopefully not have to have a day job. But it's not like someone like Metallica or fucking these massive internationally famous for decades bands are hurting for cash. You're not stealing their art when the art has already been available almost long enough to be entered into the public domain.
Yeah. No, I totally agree.
And one more time, man, God bless Tom Lehrer, who at 92 years old decided that the entirety of his musical catalog should be released into the public domain. And that includes,
I'm expecting nothing less from him.
It's such a good
guy. Just one last middle finger to the establishment.
We've been over this a couple of times on the show, but like I have a just undying love for Tom festivals for a living. Like, that was the booth in the morning when we were, you know, fucking straightening up and getting ready to open up, was Songs and More Songs by Tom Lehrer. And there's nothing quite like catching someone who isn't fully comprehending what they're hearing coming out of Tom Lehrer's mouth with this like delightful piano music in the background, and then like Poisoning Pigeons in the Park is on, or I Hold Your Hand in Mine, which you should just go listen to that. I'm not even gonna spoil it. Yeah, dude, hey, that guy's a treasure. He really is. And I remember listening to stuff from Tom Lehrer. He wrote songs for the Electric Company, like the kids show on PBS that used to air in the 70s and 80s and a little bit into the 90s. And he wrote songs for the Animaniacs and fucking
who are back now. They got new Animaniacs season.
I heard. I haven't checked them out.
I haven't either.
I don't know if you can top old school Animaniacs.
I feel like it can't be as good as the original.
I'm afraid that
because reality's too stupid to be able to mock with an Animaniacs level of like zaniness now.
Yeah,
like it's fair. Just, you know, like a lot of old school satire is kind of falling apart because it's like that was last week. Yeah, we saw that happen already.
Apparently, there was a Simpsons episode where the secret cabal of billionaires who run the world met to plan a pandemic and release a virus onto the population.
Okay.
It's like mid-90s.
Was this before or after they predicted President Trump?
Before. And there's a guy who's like, they're trying to discuss how they can best control the population. And the dude at the head of the table like reaches down and grabs a briefcase, and he's like, well, we do have this thing that's been sitting around. And he opens it up and he pulls out a syringe and he describes the virus, and then he shoots the president of NBC with it, and the dude collapses immediately onto the floor. But like, yeah, I mean, that's a thing that happened like before the correct prediction of Donald Trump's presidency, and the erroneous prediction of President Lisa Simpson, which I think was supposed to be Elizabeth Warren or Hillary Clinton. I'm not sure which. I feel
like Lisa was a very clear Hillary Clinton analog, right down to the hair.
Okay, yeah, no, I can see that. I can. They like, and whenever they showed grown up Lisa, it was always with Hillary Clinton's haircut, no matter what the haircut was.
Yeah.
This is wild. There's a like a 5-minute clip of a couple of radio show hosts talking about how Matt Groening is a time traveler. Like they're joking about it, but they're like, in Futurama is him laughing at us. Like that's him letting us know that he's a time traveler and all this shit. I don't know. At any rate, I do have to get out of here. I gotta make a couple of things happen before we're back on at 3. So Morgan, thanks again so much. I really do enjoy talking to you, and it's been an incredibly fun conversation. Please go follow Morgan on Twitter, Lavender, the letter N, red. And check out her work on Sputnik. And I fucking just dropped the name of the other outlet that you write for.
Liberation News.
Liberation News. Okay. I was going to say Times, and that was going to be wrong. So, but yeah, thank you all for hanging out. Thanks, Sleepy Josh, on the 1s and 2s, as always. Please join us at 3 o'clock on the Rockfin. We're gonna have some fun. Yeah, we're gonna have some fun. Until then, this has been Slow News Day. I'm Steve Poikinen. Good luck to us all.